Here is the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Brendan Shanahan. First of all, how are you doing? I know all your kids are at home. How are you coping with what is the new normal for all of us?
It's probably the way a lot of people are handling it. It's you know, we try to get out maybe once a day, go for a walk, or get a little bit of exercise in. I saw something about that on the internet, which I thought was sort of humorous. That it takes a quarantine before we all want to get outside and get back into shape. We adhere to the rules. It was a little bit difficult at the start, but my kids have been fantastic as far as staying in, and they miss their friends, but they keep in touch with them on social media, and we're the same way. And for the most part, we have family dinners, and we try to do like a movie time every night. So there's some good scraps within I think selecting the movie takes longer than watching the movie. But
Have you won any of these arguments? I know it's Jack, Kate, and Maggie are your three kids, or do you lose on this?
Oh, I think that generally speaking, it's very wise to lose that battle. And I try to convince them to, at this time, like I'm picking out the old, my twins are 17 and then my youngest is 15. So I'm trying to get them to watch what I remember as the classics from when I was that age, like John Hughes movies and, Breakfast Club and things like that. So I'm always trying to squeeze in one of my old favorites, but generally speaking, it's they're picking good movies too. But more important than any of that is that we're together and we're spending some time together, trying to find a silver lining in what's a very difficult and scary time for adults, for kids, and for society. And and we're fortunate. We're a fortunate family in that sense. And you think about the families or the people that don't have some of the safe havens that we currently have. So I think that this has been a real eye opener and wake up call for not just our family, but for everyone in society. And I also like to just take this time before we get talking about hockey and things like that to just thank and say how inspired I am by the frontline workers and healthcare workers and first responders and the people who are running and keeping open the essential businesses, to keep our society feeling, as normal as we possibly can at a time like this. I just saw something on TV, and we have probably like a lot of families, we have the TV on 24/7. Sometimes you almost want to mute it and take a break and not listen to the news around the world, but everything's changing so quickly and every day you can't help but watch. But I'm also seeing so many inspiring stories of humanity around the world that you like to think that in this horrible situation, that there's something learned that comes out of this afterwards, that maybe the world is a better place, how we treat each other and how we react to each other and how we empathize with each other. But you'd hate to think that it takes something horrific like this for us to start to recognize, how much we have in common with in humanity.
You're so right in your words. I mean, we spend all year talking about hockey heroes and idolizing these guys, but the doctors and nurses and everybody else you mentioned out there, it gives you perspective on where the real heroes are in life, correct?
Absolutely. And I sort of hate having to say that every time something happens in the world, and that now this gives you perspective, but it is true that you get caught up in your daily life and your daily goals, and that's just, again, being part of being human. But this is something that in our lifetime none of us can see anything like this. And I'm thinking back to some of the experiences that we've had, or I won't even start listing them, but nothing sort of matches on a global scale, at least in my lifetime, what's happening here right now.
You mentioned your players, and I see the odd post on social media, but a lot of the young guys, especially, are sort of downtown Toronto condos. Are they going stir crazy in your communications with them?
Well, most for that reason have gone back to where they're from. Like I said, for a lot of them, that's that's their off-season setup, and that is, as you pointed out, sometimes that's um, the place where they live. Isn't that great? I love this. Hey, James, like
My
we're having all
wife
these meetings.
like this for lunch.
We we
You want the ravioli?
You know, many times I've been on conference calls, all of a sudden someone comes in and says, "Make me eggs."
It's like the old Will Ferrell. Ma, the meatloaf.
That is a bit of a new normal as well. So they have their places in the off season are usually the places where they are best set up, not only to have the support from their families, but also to train and stay ready. So we travel so much during the season for many of the guys. They come to Toronto and they have a condo. You know, they use it to sleep and to get away in between games.
What do you say to them? What questions do they have for you when you do talk to them? They must be just like the rest of us, saying what's going on constantly.
Yeah, and we don't have answers either. And you know, I don't think that anyone in the world right now could say that there's a definite answer. And so we all just talk to them about taking precautions and give them the support that they need. You know, they communicate with each other. Imagine, in some ways, I was saying to my kids the other day, imagine, you know, if this happened when we were their age, we didn't have all these forms of social media to connect. And you know, so the players are very adept, obviously, at connecting with each other when they can't be with each other. So I think they try to support each other that way. As I said, Kyle Dubas is sort of the point person on communicating to our players each and every day as news changes or evolves. So, and I think that they want to remain hopeful that hockey's coming back at some point. They know that it'll look different. That whether we're finishing some portion of this season in playoffs or just playoffs or whether we're just moving on to next season, they just want to be ready for whatever comes their way, because those decisions haven't been made and they can't be made at this time. So
How do you plan? Like, have you tried to plan for these various scenarios? Do you have some big whiteboard that has 6 different scenarios up there? How do you deal with that as a president of a team?
well, I don't have a whiteboard in my house, and I'm sure you don't either.
Fridge
So
magnets?
yeah, and as you know, this Skype thing, this is my very first Skype, and you had to walk me through it. So no, we're doing it all remotely from our homes. You know, the NHL just recently asked us to look at more dates as you know, arena availability. The NBA is doing the same thing. I think everyone's just trying to keep as many options open as possible, so that if there's a positive change here, eventually we're ready to go and we're ready to get started. And so I talked to one of our players yesterday, and he said, like, their message to each other as players is to use this time right now for strength gains. What was normally their typical summer and typical schedule might not be their normal typical schedule. So they want to get back. They all want to get back. We all want to get back. But I think that what they're doing right now is the right approach, which is to just train, take care of your families, take care of yourself, stay home, be safe, be socially responsible, and just be ready.
Just a couple of business questions. The NHL head office has reduced the wages of some of their staff, their entire staff. The Montreal Canadiens have done the same. Do you foresee the Leafs having to do that at a certain point here in the future?
It's not something that's been talked about yet. So I think we're very fortunate with the ownership that we have here and the leadership that we have here. Again, like all questions that come around, how this thing evolves and how long this thing goes, none of us know. But I can say that right now, that hasn't been a subject that we've had to deal with.
It's hard to wrap your head around, isn't it? Because we're all hoping, you know, you're getting arena dates that maybe we can get this thing back on in the summer and have a Stanley Cup champion. But there's also worst case scenario here that there's some sort of second wave in the fall, and not only do we not see the end of this season, but next season is jeopardized, and that's difficult for anyone to get their head around. But I'm wondering, there's someone like yourself, you know, what the impact of this may be on the game when it's said and done.
Well, I think it's gonna. hockey won't escape the impact that this is going to have on the entire world for sure, and we have to see that as reality. But I don't think there's anything wrong here with we're doing our jobs we're right now, which the most important jobs we're all doing is what's best for society, and not overwhelming and inundating our healthcare services as best as we can, so that if we're responsible, hopefully they are always in a position to take care of the people that need to be taken care of. But I think that there's nothing also wrong with having a little bit of optimism as well. So until somebody tells me that we're not going to do something or we can't do something, I think that our approach is always going to be planning for optimistic news and good news. So that's how I'm saying we want to be ready.
And optimism is badly needed right now. And with that in mind, I think if I was a Leafs fan, I'd probably be missing a little bit of hockey talk. So let's do a little bit of that. How much were you anticipating, as a guy who scored 50 goals a couple of times, how much were you looking forward to Austin Matthews hitting that mark?
Yeah, it was exciting, and he and I talked about it at one point, and he really had his perspective. He had the proper perspective. I thought he understood that this was about wins and this was about him leading our team in that sense. But you also have to remember that that's a special number, and I'm sure he was excited about it, as were we. So that's unfortunate, but I think that Austin, and at his age and with the upside, with so much of his career still in front of him, I think he'll be knocking on that door again.
Yeah, I missed stats, so I'll throw one at you. He ranks 5th all-time in percentage of games with goals, and the players ahead of him are Bossy, Ovechkin, Mario, and Bure, which is pretty much as elite as it gets, isn't it?
Yeah, those are all good hockey players.
Yeah, they're not bad. Is there anything you miss most about watching this team? I was thinking, what a roller coaster season. I don't know. Have you ever experienced a team with this many highs and lows, and the degree of highs and lows, and then this comes along to go on top of it all?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a good question. I think to a certain degree, we get very focused and wrapped up, obviously, on as does every team, and with their own performance. It seems to me to be a little bit more of the new NHL, and right when you're really focused on yourself and you're either pleased or very upset, you see another team in another city in a game that they should have won and get shellacked by a team that's well out of the playoffs. And I just think right now, like, even the teams that are at the bottom of the standings have so many good players. They're so well coached. There's so much information available that if you're not at your best and you're not ready to play, you're going to get beaten by anybody. And that wasn't always the case in the 90s. There were some teams that you could take 2 periods off and still beat them. There were expansion teams that weren't positioned very well. The preparation available to coaches wasn't at the level it is now. So I think to a certain degree, this sort of highs and lows and unexpected wins and unexpected losses are part of maybe the new NHL. What was interesting about our team was that, as I said shortly before this break, a lot of the mistakes and a lot of the positions we put ourselves in, I think, could be, in some ways, are also attributed to the inexperience and youth of our team. What I was excited about was that when we put when our backs were up against the wall, we came out with such strong, good performances. What I think frustrated us all, including our fans, was why did we keep putting our backs against the wall so often? And
Right.
And so that, again, I would point to maybe some of the youth and inexperience of once you look at some of these players that have played in the NHL and had success for 10, 11, 12 years, that idea of, like, you got to do it every night. We know you're not going to be at your best every night, but the real pros, the Sidney Crosbys of this game, they find a way of doing it on more nights than not. And that's something that every young player develops and learns as a pro. And I have no doubt that our players are going to develop that as well. So I was excited about the idea of us, with all of this adversity and all of these different smacks and punches in the nose, proverbially, that we got this year. I was excited to see these guys get into a playoff situation, fight for a playoff situation, then get into a playoff situation and see where things land.
Do you have a favorite scenario? All these ones being discussed, I assume you'd like maybe the playoffs to start so you're guaranteed a spot right now. But are you okay with these 3 out of 5s? Do you like the idea of the playoffs starting? Again, this is all best case scenario if it can happen at some point with 16 teams or 20 teams. Is there anything in particular you like of these ideas?
I'll be honest, I just want hockey back, but I also want hockey back when it's the safe time and the right time to do it, and it's not going to be entirely within the control of the National Hockey League or any of the other sports leagues. When we come back, there'll be other bigger entities helping us make those decisions as well. But again, to speculate on what this could look like or when it starts, I think is a little bit fruitless. It really just depends on where we are and when we can. And I think any form of hockey at that point will be welcomed, not just from hockey fans, but I think especially when you look at Canada, we put so much of our national identity into the sport of hockey, not just at the professional level. I think that'll just be, when the time comes that players start coming back to arenas and they start getting on the ice and training and working out together, that's going to do so much in some ways for our national psyche. And it's not to just point things at hockey. There's so many more important things than hockey, but I work in hockey. And so that's my focus, is just when we come back, how important that'll be.
I think you're right. We all understand perspective and where hockey lies in the world, but it doesn't mean it's not important to all the people watching this and all the hockey fans, as well as all the people working in the game. I want to let you go. I've given you a 20-minute arm workout there. Got a big pump going, holding up that phone.
I'll be honest with you. I'm holding my arm up with my other arm. So,
have the kids got Tiger King yet on Netflix?
March 26th. Good movie. Tonight, I'm making my kids watch The Russian Five.
The Russian Five.
That famous March 26, 1997 game, Detroit versus Colorado. The most complete, best hockey game.
Now, will they watch the whole thing, or will they be on TikTok like half an hour in?
Oh, I take the phones away before movie time, including myself. If I'm watching something that they've selected, it's and somehow they managed to like sneak it in, or they go to the bathroom or go into the kitchen. But yeah, so that's my request tonight as we watch a hockey movie.
Have you watched the Tiger King thing on Netflix that everybody's talking about?
No, what's that?
It's a documentary about a bunch of crazy people who have like tiger zoos. If you thought the Toronto media was crazy, you need to see these characters.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll probably get around to watching it.
And maybe will we see you in flip-flops and shorts if there's playoff hockey in Toronto in the summer?
Who knows? Whatever. I mean, for me, throwing this on was dressing up. Listen. I know you guys requested I wear a robe, but yeah, I think when I walked down and had this like Maple Leafs vest on, my kids were like, "Why are you so dressed up today?" So,
you learn the tricks of Skype. I have sweatpants on underneath the shirt and the suit, so you're allowed to get away with almost anything. Appreciate.
Please, you're wearing pants. You could have taken this a whole weird way, James. Thank you.
Say hi to all the kids and to Catherine for us, and enjoy the movie tonight. And all the best. I hope we're talking hockey again soon.
You too, James, and for any of our fans or your families, stay safe, and hope to see you all again soon.
Well said. Brendan Shanahan, the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs.